I inherited $40 million but hid it from everyone. My sister stole from me while my parents cheered her on. Then, at their bankruptcy hearing, I revealed I owned their entire world. I was 25 when Uncle Daniel Pierce died, leaving me a fortune I never expected. $40 million in tech startups, patents, and real estate scattered across California. With it came a handwritten note, his final words to me. People reveal their hearts when they think you're powerless. Watch closely, Emma. Uncle Dan had been my rock, a wiry man with grease-stained hands and a quiet smile, tinkering in his garage while the world passed him by. My family thought he was a failure, a dreamer who'd squandered his life on gadgets that never sold. They didn't know he'd built an empire, or that he'd chosen me to carry it on. My older sister, Claire, was the golden child, 28, all sharp edges and sharper ambition. She'd flit from one big idea to the next, always with Mom and Dad's money trailing behind her like a lifeline. To them, I was just Emma, the practical one, scraping by as a freelance graphic designer in a cramped San Jose apartment. They didn't suspect I'd taken the reins of Pierce Innovations, Dan's company, or that I was sitting on wealth they couldn't imagine. I kept it hidden, trading my designer jeans for thrift store finds, my sleek office for a desk by a flickering lamp. I wanted to see who they really were when they thought I had nothing. Claire would breeze into Sunday dinners, her laugh bright and cutting, tossing barbs about my little art projects, while Mom nodded and Dad beamed. They'd never understood Uncle Dan, called him eccentric, a loner, and they didn't understand me either. But Dan saw something in me, a spark he'd nurtured through late-night talks and lessons in resilience. Now, with his note tucked in my drawer and his legacy in my hands, I was ready to watch. Claire and our parents had no idea what was coming, and neither did I, not yet. The first few months after Uncle Dan's death were a blur of learning curves and late nights. By day, I played the part of Emma the freelancer, hunched over my laptop in a dingy apartment, sketching logos for clients who paid late. By night, I slipped into my real role, CEO of Pierce Innovations, reviewing contracts and steering a tech empire from a hidden office in Palo Alto. I traded my car for a beat-up Toyota, my wardrobe for faded tees, all to keep the mask intact. It wasn't easy, but Uncle Dan's words kept me grounded. Watch closely. So I did. Sunday dinners at Mom and Dad's became my testing ground. Claire would sweep in, her hair perfect, her voice loud with plans for her latest venture, a luxury skincare line she swore would revolutionize the industry. Mom's eyes would light up, Dad would nod like she'd invented the wheel, and they'd empty their savings into her pitch without a second thought. Last week, they'd handed her $50,000 for market research, never mind the mortgage payment looming. Me? I'd sit there, picking at Mom's overcooked roast, mentioning a small design award I'd won. A national nod for a nonprofit campaign. "That's nice, honey," Mom said once, barely looking up. But Claire's got real momentum now. I bit my tongue, the sting of their indifference settling deep. Claire loved the spotlight and she knew how to wield it. One night, as Dad cleared the plates, she leaned across the table, smirking. How's that freelance thing going? Still shopping at Goodwill?" Her tone was all sugar, but the jab landed hard. I forced a smile, adjusting my thrift store sweater. "It pays the bills," I said, my voice steady. Inside, I was seething. Not at the tease, but at how easily she dismissed me. Mom chimed in, "You should take some pointers from Claire. She's got ambition." I nodded, filing it away, my resolve hardening. They didn't know I'd just closed a $2 million deal with a startup incubator, all under Pierce's name. The next week, I caught something worse. I'd stepped out to the patio for air during one of Claire's monologues, something about organic serums, when her voice drifted through the screen door. She was on the phone, laughing with a friend. "Emma? Oh, she's hopeless. Always fiddling with her little drawings. She'll be stuck in that apartment forever." The words hit like a slap, sharper than her usual digs. I stood there, the cool night air brushing my face, my fists clenched. Hopeless? I'd graduated top of my class at UC Berkeley, built a portfolio that landed me clients nationwide. All while she'd flunked out of college and burned through Dad's retirement fund on a failed fashion blog. But to her, to them, I was nothing. I slipped back inside, my heart pounding, Uncle Dan's note flashing in my mind. People reveal their hearts. Claire's was starting to show. Her skincare launch crept closer, and the family's obsession grew. Dad sold some old stocks, ones he'd bragged about for years, to cover her initial production costs. Mom started hosting investor teas in their living room, serving Claire's untested creams to neighbors who nodded politely. I kept my head down, sketching in my notebook, pretending to listen as they raved about her genius. Once, I tried to join in, mentioning a tech conference I'd attended. Pierce had sponsored it, though I didn't say that. "Oh, Emma, that's sweet," Dad said, patting my hand like I was a kid with a lemonade stand. "But Claire's really onto something big." I smiled thinly, the dismissal a familiar ache. They didn't know I'd spoken on a panel that day, my voice filling a room of Silicon Valley execs. The cracks in their logic were widening, though they couldn't see it. Claire's brand had no business plan, no supply chain, just pretty packaging and her charm. I'd seen the numbers. I ran a company that lived or died by them. But Mom and Dad poured in more cash, their blind faith unshakable. I started to notice other signs too. Their car needed repairs they couldn't afford. The dining room chandelier flickered from unpaid bills. They were sinking, and Claire was the anchor, dragging them down with her dreams. I kept quiet, my own bank account swelling as Pierce thrived. I'd hired a manager to handle the day-to-day, letting me stay in the shadows, watching. That night, alone in my fake apartment, I pulled up Pierce's latest quarterly report. $5 million in profit. I could have bought Mom and Dad's house outright, paid off their debts, set Claire up for life. But I didn't. I shut my laptop, the glow fading, and leaned back on my thrift store couch. Claire's laughter echoed in my ears, Mom's praise, Dad's shrugs. They thought I was powerless, a footnote in their story. They were wrong. I wasn't just watching anymore. I was waiting. For what? I wasn't sure yet, but I felt it building. A storm they'd never see coming. Uncle Dan had taught me patience, and I was learning just how deep their hearts ran or didn't. 6 months into my secret, the air at home grew thicker with Claire's schemes. Her skincare line was floundering. Bottles sat unsold. Her investors ghosted. But she spun it like a triumph, dazzling Mom and Dad with promises of a relaunch. I kept my routine. Mornings sketching logos in my fake apartment. Afternoons running Pierce innovations from a sleek office they'd never see. I'd started tracking their finances through discrete channels. Pierce had the resources and saw the truth. Their savings were nearly gone, the house remortgaged twice. Yet Claire's confidence never wavered, and neither did their faith in her. Then she crossed a line I hadn't expected. I'd been working late on a freelance gig, a pro bono project for a women's shelter, when my email pinged. A friend forwarded me a pitch deck for Claire's relaunch, and there, splashed across slide 6, were my designs. The bold lines, the minimalist logo I'd spent weeks perfecting for the shelter. They were hers now, rebranded as Claire Pierce Skincare. My stomach dropped. I stormed over to her apartment the next day, printouts in hand. "Claire, what the hell is this?" I demanded, shoving the pages at her. She barely glanced up from her phone, lounging in a silk robe Mom had bought her. "Oh, those? I found them on your laptop last time I visited. They're perfect for my vibe. Don't be dramatic." Her smirk twisted the knife. "You stole them," I said, voice shaking. "Those were for a charity." She rolled her eyes. "You don't need the credit, Em. You're not going anywhere with your little doodles." "I am." Rage burned through me, but I walked out, her laughter trailing behind. I could have sued her. Pierce's lawyers would have crushed her, but I held back. I needed more. Mom and Dad took her side, of course. I called them that night, still fuming. "She stole my work, and you're okay with that?" Mom sighed, like I was a kid whining about a toy. "Emma, don't be so sensitive. Claire's under pressure. She needs all the help she can get." Dad cut in gruff. "You're just jealous she's making something of herself. Let it go." Their words hit like bricks, piling on years of being sidelined. I hung up, staring at my thrift store wall, my real wealth a silent shield. They didn't care about fairness, they never had. I started digging deeper, buying up their smaller debts through Pierce's shell companies, my plan taking shape. A month later, Claire struck again, and this time it was personal. I'd kept a necklace from Uncle Dan, a simple silver chain with a tiny gear pendant, a gift from when I was 12. He'd made it himself, said it was for my spark. It lived in a box at Mom and Dad's, a memory I'd planned to reclaim. One afternoon, I stopped by to grab it, only to find the box empty. Mom was in the kitchen, avoiding my eyes. "Where's my necklace?" I asked, dread creeping in. She fidgeted. "Oh, honey." Claire needed funds for her relaunch. She said you wouldn't mind. "It's just an old trinket." My chest tightened. "She sold it?" Dad walked in, defensive. It fetched $500 at auction. Claire's got a meeting with a big retailer. Every penny counts. Couldn't breathe. That was mine. From Uncle Dan. She lied. I never agreed. Mom waved a hand. Don't make a fuss, Emma. It's for the family. I left without another word. Grief and fury warring inside me. That necklace wasn't just metal. It was him, and they'd let her pawn it like trash. I drove straight to my real office, the San Jose skyline glittering beyond the glass. My assistant, Mia, handed me a report. Claire's latest loan, $20,000 from a shady lender, co-signed by Dad. Their debt was spiraling. Credit cards maxed, utility bills overdue. But Claire still strutted around like a mogul. I pulled up Pierce's holdings. I'd quietly scooped up their second mortgage, a few personal loans. Not enough yet, but close. I thought of the necklace, its gear glinting in my memory, and my anger hardened into something cold, precise. Claire wasn't just careless. She was ruthless, and they enabled her. I leaned back, the city lights blurring, and made a call. Mia, find me every outstanding debt they've got. I want it all. That night, I sat alone, sketching absently. A habit to calm my nerves. The shelter project was done, my stolen designs replaced, but the sting lingered. Claire's theft wasn't just about pride. It was proof she'd take anything, even from me, if it served her. And the necklace? God, losing that hurt more than I could say. I traced the gear's shape on paper, my throat tight. Mom and Dad's excuses echoed, their loyalty to her a wall I'd never breach. But I wasn't powerless. Pierce Innovations was humming, $6 million in revenue last quarter, and I held the strings now. Claire thought she was winning, dazzling them with lies. She didn't know I was watching, waiting, building a cage from their own greed. Uncle Dan had been right. Their hearts were showing, and they were uglier than I'd feared. A year had passed since Uncle Dan's death, and the cracks in my family's facade were splitting wide open. Claire's skincare relaunch tanked. Retailers pulled out. Her organic creams sat in a rented warehouse, gathering dust, but she didn't slow down. I'd watch her Instagram stories from my fake apartment, her posts dripping with fake glamour. Rooftop parties, designer bags, a life Mom and Dad couldn't afford but kept funding. Pierce Innovations was soaring. $8 million in profit last quarter, and I'd used it to tighten my grip, buying their primary mortgage and most of their credit lines through shell companies. Their debt was mine now, a web I'd spun in silence. The signs of their collapse were everywhere. Mom stopped hosting her teas. The living room curtains stayed drawn. Dad's car broke down on the freeway, towed away because they couldn't pay for repairs. Yet Claire rolled up to the house one Sunday in a gleaming BMW. Its lease another $30,000 hole in their finances. It's for meetings, Dad said when I raised an eyebrow, his voice tight. She needs to look the part. I nodded, sipping lukewarm coffee. My thrift store jeans a stark contrast to her leather jacket. Inside, I seethed, they were drowning, and she was the weight pulling them under. I kept my mouth shut, my real office's skyline view flashing in my mind. Then Claire came to me. It was a rainy Tuesday, and I was sketching in my cramped home when she knocked. Her mascara streaked like she'd rehearsed the tears. We're in trouble, she said, collapsing onto my sagging couch. The bank's threatening to foreclose. I need your help. Her voice was soft, pleading, a performance I'd never seen before. How much? I asked, playing along. She hesitated. Whatever you've got. Even a few thousand. I leaned back, studying her. I've got maybe $2,000 saved. That's it. Her mask slipped, eyes flashing. You're so selfish, hoarding your pathetic little stash while we lose everything. The venom shocked me, but I stayed calm. I've got rent to pay, Claire. She stormed out, slamming the door, and I exhaled, my plan humming beneath the surface. Dad called the next night, his tone all business. Emma, we need to talk. Claire says you wouldn't help. What's wrong with you? I gripped the phone, the familiar ache rising. I told her I don't have much. I can't give what I don't have. He scoffed. You've always been small-minded. Claire's got a new investor lined up. A big one. We just need a bridge loan to keep the house. Step up for once. My jaw tightened. A bridge loan? They were delusional. Her investor was probably another scam. What about her BMW? I asked. Sell that. He bristled. That's an investment in her future. Don't be ridiculous. I pictured their house, the one I now owned on paper, and felt a cold satisfaction. I'm sorry, Dad. I can't. He hung up with a muttered, You're a disgrace. And I sat there, the silence heavy but electric. The next week, I saw it for myself. Driving past their street in my Toyota, still my cover. I spotted a for sale sign on the neighbor's lawn. Not theirs, but their driveway was empty, the BMW gone. Later, Mia confirmed it. Claire had traded it for a flashier Tesla. Another $40,000 debt on a maxed-out card. I pulled up Pierce's records that night. $9.5 million in their combined liabilities. All mine. The house payment was due in days, and their accounts held less than $1,000. They were done, and Claire was still spending like a queen. I leaned back in my real office chair, the city lights sprawling below, and felt the shift. This wasn't just about watching anymore, it was about acting. Claire's desperation peaked a few days later. She texted me, "Meet me at Mom's. Emergency." I arrived in my beat-up car, stepping into chaos. Mom was pacing, her hair uncombed, muttering about the bank. Dad sat at the table, staring at a stack of overdue notices. Claire stood by the window, arms crossed. "They're taking the house," she said, glaring at me. "Unless you cough up something." I shrugged. "I told you. I've got nothing." Mom turned, eyes wild. "Emma, please. You must have something. Claire's so close to a breakthrough." I almost laughed. A breakthrough? She'd burned through their lives for a fantasy. "I can't help," I said, voice flat. Claire snapped, "You're useless. Always have been." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "She's right. You've never cared about this family." I walked out, their shouts fading behind me. In my car, I pulled up the foreclosure notice I drafted through Pierce, set to hit tomorrow. My hands shook, not with fear, but with a strange clarity. They'd chosen her over me again and again, even now. Claire's greed had stripped them bare, and they still couldn't see it. I drove back to my apartment, the rain streaking my windshield, and thought of Uncle Dan. He'd warned me, and I'd listened. Their fall was here, and I held the reins. Tomorrow they'd face the truth, not just of their ruin, but of who I'd become. The bankruptcy hearing was set for a gray November morning, the kind where the fog clings to everything. I'd spent the night in my real office, finalizing the paperwork that would unravel their world. Pierce Innovations owned it all now, their $10 million debt, from the house to Claire's Tesla lease, and I was ready. I drove my Toyota to the courthouse, parked a block away, and watched them arrive. Claire stepped out of the Tesla, her coat pristine despite the repo notice I'd sent yesterday. Mom followed, her face pinched, Dad trailing with a briefcase that looked too light to hold any hope. They didn't see me slip inside, my thrift store jacket swapped for a tailored blazer, my hair pulled back sharp. The courtroom buzzed with Silicon Valley suits. Creditors, lawyers, gawkers here for the show. My family sat up front, Claire tapping her nails, Mom whispering to Dad. The bailiff called order, and Judge Ramirez took the bench, her glasses glinting as she scanned the file. Case 3912, Pierce Family Bankruptcy. Creditors Representative. My cue. I stood, briefcase in hand, and walked to the front. Emma Pierce, representing Pierce Innovations. The room went still. Claire's head snapped up, her eyes wide. Mom gasped, a hand flying to her mouth. Dad's jaw dropped, the briefcase slipping to the floor. "Emma?" Claire's voice cracked, disbelief twisting her face. I set my papers down, calm as steel. "Good morning, Claire." "Mom." "Dad." Judge Ramirez raised an eyebrow. "Proceed, Ms. Pierce." I opened my folder. Pierce Innovations holds all outstanding debts of the Pierce family. $10.2 million, including the primary residence mortgage, personal loans, and vehicle leases. I'm here to present terms. Dad lurched forward, his lawyer yanking him back. "What is this? You're a freelancer." I met his gaze. "No, Dad. I'm CEO of Pierce Innovations, Uncle Dan's company. I inherited it, $40 million, and I've been running it for a year." The whispers erupted, a wave of shock rolling through the crowd. Claire stood, furious. "That's impossible. You're lying." I slid a document across the table. Dan's will, stamped and notarized. "It's all here. While you were chasing your breakthroughs, I was building his legacy and buying your debts." Mom started crying, mascara streaking. "Emma, why didn't you tell us?" I turned to her, my voice steady but edged. "Because you showed me who you are. You let Claire steal my designs for her pitch. You sold Uncle Dan's necklace, my necklace, for her lies. You never saw me." Judge Ramirez banged her gavel. "Order. Miss Pierce, your terms." I pulled out my proposal. First, Claire's assets, car, accounts are seized. She finds a job. No more ventures. Second, Mom and Dad move into a condo I've purchased. Modest, paid off. Third, they attend financial counseling, no exceptions. Claire lunged forward. You can't do this. I'm your sister. I didn't flinch. You stopped being my sister when you took what was mine and laughed about it. Dad found his voice hoarse. You're ruining us. We're your family. I faced him fully. Family? You called me a disgrace for not bailing you out. You poured everything into her while I built this alone. Uncle Dan taught me value isn't money. It's character. Yours ran out. Mom sobbed louder, clutching Dad's arm. We didn't mean it, Emma. We just wanted Claire to succeed. I shook my head. You wanted her to shine, even if it meant crushing me. When you needed help, you demanded my $2,000 like it was nothing. I gave you chances to see me. You didn't. Judge Ramirez reviewed my terms, her pen tapping. This is unusually generous. Most creditors would liquidate everything. Do the Pierces accept? Their lawyer whispered frantically, but they had no leverage. Dad's shoulders slumped. We accept, he muttered, the fight gone. Claire glared, her fists clenched, but sat down. I handed over the condo keys. It's in Sunnyvale, 3 bedrooms, no frills. Movers come tomorrow. Claire, the Tesla's gone. There's a used Prius waiting. She shrieked. You're a monster. I smiled faintly. No, I'm fair. The hearing wrapped in a haze of signatures and stunned silence. My family shuffled out, avoiding my eyes, the weight of their choices sinking in. I stayed behind, gathering my papers, the courtroom emptying. A lawyer lingered, nodding. Hell of a move, Miss Pierce. I didn't answer, just left, the fog lifting outside. In my car. Not the Toyota, but a sleek Audi I kept hidden. I sat for a moment, the keys cold in my hand. I'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. Felt like justice, raw and quiet. Claire's greed, their blindness. They'd built this end, not me. Uncle Dan's words rang true. They'd shown their hearts and I'd shown mine. The engine purred to life, and I drove toward my office, the future wide open. 2 months after the hearing, I sit in my office atop Pierce Innovations, the Silicon Valley sprawl shimmering below. The view's a far cry from my fake apartment's peeling walls, and I've traded my Toyota for the Audi full-time. Reports pile on my desk. $10 million in revenue this quarter. But my eyes drift to a framed photo. Uncle Dan and me, grinning by his workbench, his note taped beneath it. Watch closely. I did, and it changed everything. Claire's working now. Retail at a mall in Sunnyvale. Folding shirts for minimum wage. She texts me complaints daily, but I don't reply. The Prius sits in her driveway, a dent already marring its hood. She's learning to live without handouts. Mom and Dad settled into the condo I bought them. Small, beige. A world away from their old mansion. They've stuck to the budget I set, attending counseling sessions with a grudging quiet. Mom called last week, her voice soft. Why'd you wait so long, Emma? We could have fixed this. I paused, the photo in my sights. I needed you to see value beyond money, Mom. So did I. She didn't argue, just sighed. A crack in the wall between us. I drive by the condo sometimes, slowing to glimpse Mom watering plants or Dad reading on the porch. They don't wave and I don't stop, but there's a steadiness to them now, a humility I never saw before. Claire's the wild card, her anger lingers, but she's clocking hours, earning calluses. I wonder if she'll ever get it. That worth isn't a Tesla or a pitch deck. I gave them a lifeline, not luxury, and what they do with it is theirs to figure out. My phone buzzes, a client meeting, but I linger, tracing the photo's edge. Uncle Dan's gear necklace is gone. A wound that still aches, but his lessons endure. He saw me when they didn't, built me up while they tore me down. I kept his legacy alive, not just in millions, but in the strength to stand tall. Claire's greed stripped them bare. I gave them a mirror. Forgiveness? That's up to them. For now, I've got a company to run and a life to live, mine, not theirs. The sun dips low, painting the valley gold. I smile, shutting my laptop. A new dawn's here, and I'm ready. Thank you for watching the video. If this story touched your heart, please share your thoughts below. Your like may seem small, but it gives me the strength to keep creating every single day. See you in the next video.